Jay, you have also done a lot of work into what is called the archons.
That's right.
Rulers.
The rulers.
Who are they?
Well, the first time that we really hear about the archons is in the Nag Hammadi texts, which were discovered in 1945 in Egypt, in clay jars. Little boy looking for his sheep walks into a cave and finds these clay jars. They laid around for a few years, and finally some scholars found them and started doing interpretations of them. So what's good about the Nag Hammadi is that nobody's messed with them. You know, no popes, no kings, no politicians.
They haven't been changed.
They haven't been changed. So we can actually read what the ancients 2,000 years ago thought of the world. And one of the things that they talk about is a chapter called the hypostasis of the archons. And they say that there's entities and can get into people and change them. And these entities are attracted by violence and depraved sex, and they kind of almost like locusts in a fire, or coming in, they swoop in on violent situations, war, conflict, and encourage it. They feed off of it like food. And so the Gnostics who wrote the Nag Hammadi, they say that the archons are fomenting all of this strife and war to create kind of a psychic food for them. And so we need to be aware of this because they are kind of the manipulators behind a lot of the things that are going on these days. And once we become aware of the archons, then we can make sure that we understand that road rage, for instance, somebody gives you the finger and you don't react because you're falling into the archon trap.
Sure.
So the person is angry, they're trying to get to work, a big fight ensues. And
you could get killed.
It happens all the time. And so we have to understand this and then not fall into the archon trap and say no. And I think, again, Jesus, was trying to teach us how not to fall into the archon trap. Forgive your enemies and love each other. And these are things that archons don't like. They don't like love. They don't really like children.
Are they humans?
Well, human-like. You interviewed Mac Tonnies on your show. He died right after he wrote the book Crypto-Terrestrials, which is about the the archons. Here's the cover of his book, this haunting painting. Now, I think this is a tall white. Charles Hall's tall whites. I think this might be a tall white, but I think it's also an archon. In other words, they're humanoid beings and can infiltrate, use their psychic abilities to infiltrate into the councils of humanity. They've taken over the top levels of humanity.
Are they what we call the Illuminati?
They are, and and an archon means ruler in Greek. And so if you take the word like anarchist or anarchy, it translates perfectly as against the archons. So the archons, they kind of took over the leadership positions around the world 2,500, 3,000 years ago, and they've been in charge ever since. And apparently they have the ability to switch bodies, so they can die and switch bodies, or they just possess people. We don't know enough about this. It's why it's so important to get it out.
If you saw them walking down the street, though, Jay, you would say clearly they look different.
They do.
This looks like you, but I've seen people who look like this.
Yes, I have too. In fact, when I'm waiting at the airport, when I'm waiting to take a flight, I'll frequently go to where people are walking by on the moving sidewalks.
Is that a real picture?
That is a real picture. She's a supermodel, and again, our idea of beauty is based on these people. If you look at models, they frequently have the thin chin. And I think she's probably used collagen on her lips because
if she didn't have hair, she would look identical to that picture.
Yeah, if you shaved her head, she would look just like that. Here's one. They'll frequently use their hair to hide the back of their head.
What's back there?
Well, I think they have an extended, elongated skull a little bit, and they use their hair to try to cover it up.
Now that looks like anybody's grandmother.
It does, except imagine with her head shaved. Again, she would look like that picture, right? If you shaved her head. And this is a very famous person, by the way. This is Lady Barbara Judge. She runs a high technology company in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and in Denver, and New York, and London.
She dresses this way?
She dresses this way, and the company transfers technology. So she's possibly a hybrid.
And so she's involved in an industry where she could alter and change a lot of things.
And she has. In fact, Lady Barbara Judge is in Japan right now trying to encourage them to build more nuclear reactors, which I find odd.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, you can see that they have a look. This is the look of the bloodline, by the way, the so-called David Icke's bloodline.
Yeah.
That's the bloodline, I believe, is how close they are to these archons.
Right.
They have archon blood, and the more archon blood they have, the higher up the echelon they are, and they try to hide this, but they have this look, and you can see this look. And Charles Hall, he says that they like to come into town and down to Vegas. Yeah, they have to dress up and
come like to gamble.
Yeah, and so whenever I'm in Vegas, I like to go around and walk around the tables and see if I see anybody.
Did you ever see one like that?
I have, actually. I saw this one at Denver Airport one time. I had a 5-hour layover, and I just sat watching people walking by on the moving sidewalks, and I looked and I saw this woman coming down the sidewalk, and she had the look. For one thing, their skin is very white, almost like paper white. And I looked at her, and I actually visibly was shocked by her appearance. And I think I stood up or something. I was going for my cell phone camera to get get a shot of her. And as she was coming down the sidewalk, she started turning away from me like this.
Like she knew you knew.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I never got a picture of her. And I didn't want to make a scene because in the airport you get in trouble.
Right.
So I do watch for people, and I look for it all the time. And I see people. Frequently, I'll take them aside. Say, "Can I take a picture of you?" Like I had a waitress serving me a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and I mean, she looked just like that. And I was like, "Wow, I got to take a picture of this."
Are they out to manipulate the world?
Yes.
Do they want wars?
Yes, they want wars. They encourage wars, corruption. This is what the hypostasis of the archon said 2,100 years ago. So I'm not making this up. They don't understand us, so they create a fake culture too. This is very important, since they rule Hollywood and the media too. If you watch the stuff that they make, it's almost like they don't quite understand us. And so they give us like fake things that they think we'll like. So that's why movies are frequently so vapid and just superficial, and it's just, there's nothing deep to it. There's just this like superficial culture that we live in, if it even is a culture at this point. The architecture that they encourage is usually very ugly. Modern art is encouraged, I believe, by the archons. They seem to like ugliness. They seem to not understand us, and so they're trying to keep us down on the farm, because if we ever realize who we really are, we will be stronger than they are, and we will defeat them.
And go after them.
Exactly. And so they know this, and so they do everything they can. They put fluoride in the water, and they give the kids, prescription drugs, and they're doing everything they can to flatten us out as a species, so that we never have enough knowledge and spiritual power to rise up and tell them, we've had enough of your stuff.
How did they get here? And how long have they been here?
That's a really good question. I don't know how they got here. Maybe they're the fallen angels and they talk about in the Bible. I don't know how they got here, but I know they've been here for probably at least 6,000 years. They've been rolling things. I believe that they're the ones who literally created the original cultures of Mesopotamia and
Samaria.
Samaria. And they put humans on like the grain-based diet. And we stopped eating the foods that hunter-gatherers eat, and we started eating foods that actually weren't very good for us. And what do these foods do? These high-grain diets, they keep us kind of sleepy and we're passive. One time I went to Alcatraz to do a tour of Alcatraz, the prison, a little island on the San Francisco Bay.
Weird place.
It was a weird place. And the person that was leading the tour said, well, every night, the final thing that we would do before we sent the prisoners into the cells was we'd feed them a big, huge pile of mashed potatoes or spaghetti.
Or pasta.
Or pasta.
Exactly.
And I raised my hand. I said, well, why do you do that? He says, well, we found that it pacifies them.
Yep.
And I went, bingo, there we go. This is why the grain diet is here, is because it's pacifying us.
Heavy starches and
Heavy
sugars.
starches and sugars, which are really we're not meant to eat at all. And if you ever looked, and I'm sure you have, looked into what those foods do to the physique of the human body, like cavities and the plaque in the arterial walls, and I mean, it's just really bad for you.
Well, I've never seen anybody energetic after eating a big plate of pasta.
No, you just want to go to bed.
You want to go to bed. You're sleepy, right?
Exactly, and I think that the archons did that on purpose, just like Alcatraz. I really do. I think a lot of the things that we have are done on purpose by the archons.
Are they here to control, to take over? What's their mission?
Their mission is to keep us on life support. Just on life support. Never cure us, never help us get better, keep us down on the farm, weak, so that they can feed off our spiritual energy.
And they do.
And they do. And you look at what's going on right now in Ukraine, okay? I mean, you talk about a nasty situation that could have, if someone had just, a politician had just risen up to the chance to solve that situation when it started, then we wouldn't be in the mess we're in now. But instead, all of our politicians, both sides, are all guilty.
They're all feeding this.
They are feeding it, and we're putting secret agents in there, and Putin's putting secret agents, and they're all fighting each other, and they're killing each other, and none of it has to happen. And when we don't know what to do, we're so lost as a species that we're watching this go down, and nobody says, can't we go over there and help those people? Same with Fukushima.
Yeah.
How come we aren't sending the greatest scientists over to Japan and solving that problem? But we're not. We're passive.
We've left it alone.
We have, and this is, I believe, is all the results of the archons. We're no longer acting like a responsible species. We're acting like little children and waiting for mommy and daddy to come clean up everything for us.
How does the other shoe that drops, Jay? What happens with these archons, assuming we don't stop them?
Well, then they will continue on with their plan. And we have to get a hold on this, because we're not in control of what's going on here. All of the art that's going on, from entertainment to paintings to music, seems like it's trying to just drag us down in the dirt, like we're a filthy, rotten species that deserves everything we get, when in fact we're not that at all. We're an incredible species, and we need to wake up to who we are and then rise up and stop what's going on.
It seems to be happening, though, at an incredibly fast clip.
That's right, because the archons know we're waking up. Shows like yours, internet, it's waking everybody up. The Nag Hammadi, I mean, is it an accident that we found this? It's right after World War II ended, and I believe that the Nag Hammadi was left for us to find.
Right.
So we would now have the warning and be able to act on it. And I believe that is our largest responsibility now, is to become adults. The archons treat us like children, and we need to say we're done being children.
Enough is enough.
Yeah, we're going to become adults. Adults don't drop depleted uranium on people. Adults don't build nuclear power plants where tsunamis are going to hit. Adults
don't kidnap hordes of little girls.
That's right.
And sell them.
I think exactly like what's going on in Nigeria right now, and which is a classic archon thing, right? And I think once we take responsibility for our actions, they will just wither away. But first we have to understand the problem, and I think that's the biggest thing that we can do right now.
Sure.
Hey, so it's not just me that's announcing this. A lot of people are talking about the archons. David Icke is talking about them. John Lash. A lot of people talk about the archons now.
And really, it's in the Bible.
It is in the Bible.
You just got to look for it.
It is. And in fact, all you have to do is just change the references to demons and Satan and just change that to archons. And now you have the Bible warning you. And it could even be said that what the story of Jesus at the end there, where he's killed, is actually a rebellion. Jesus and his followers rebelling against the archons. They go into the holy temple where they're exchanging money, which is classic archon, right? To turn a temple into a bank, and then Jesus throws all the money and the bankers out. He says this is a holy place,
He knew better.
and they went, oh yeah, and I believe that at that point when he threw them out of the temple, that his days were numbered from then on.
Jay, thanks for being on this edition of Beyond Belief.
Thank you, George.